progress rolling. Keep the legend growing, Ryan. Riding in the saddle or going into battle, your right arm's a rifle at your side. Throwing 95 miles an hour, you've still got the power. That big heat's still blazing through the sky. A true life Texas hero, stringing up the zeros. 3 up and 3 down, bye-bye. Smoke 'em in, strike 'em out, strike 'em out. Smoke 'em in, strike 'em out, Ryan. Throw the heat, toss the curve, you have plenty in reserve. Smoke 'em in, strike 'em out, Ryan. Nolan, 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 though they're disapproving, keep that curveball moving, Ryan. Don't try to understand them, just rock, fire, and venom. Come on, batter, batter, don't you cry. The stats that can't be lying, the best is Nolan Ryan, hanging all those sluggers out to dry. By any calculating, Cooperstown is waiting at the end of your ride. Strike 'em out, pop 'em up, strike 'em out, fly 'em out, ground 'em out, Ryan. Throw the heat, throw the change, keep the curveball out of range, set 'em up, strike 'em out, Ryan. Nolan, Nolan, yeah! Nolan, 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 yeah! Nolan, Nolan, yeah! Nolan, Nolan, Ryan. Yeah!
Hi everyone, I'm Mark Holtz, and throughout the history of Major League Baseball, fans have been mesmerized by pitchers who could literally overpower the opposition with their fastballs. Men like Walter Johnson, Bob Feller, Sandy Koufax, Bob Gibson, and sudden Sam McDowell. In the decade of the 80s, Roger Clemens and Dwight Gooden joined this elite group of strikeout artists, as did relief specialists Goose Gossage and Lee Smith. But when you're talking serious heat, the king of K's, one name stands alone: Lynn Nolan Ryan Jr.
Facing a Nolan Ryan fastball is like trying to drink coffee with a fork.
Noli, Big Tex, the Ryan Express. No one in Major League history has thrown harder than Nolan Ryan.
I've never seen, that's the thing about it, I've never seen anyone throw harder than him. No, never have. I've played baseball for 23 years and I have never, ever seen anyone throw any harder than he has.
No one has thrown harder longer.
I said many, many times after watching him pitch, they should send his arm to the Smithsonian Institute when he's finished. How this man has been able to continuous year after year and throw the ball at the rate of speed that he has to be one of the wonders of the world.
At 22, Nolan Ryan was a fireballing right-hander for the amazing New York Mets, 1969 world champions.
His fastball did more than just explode. It got about halfway and just kind of would disappear. Batters couldn't believe what was going on.
At 42, Nolan Ryan was a fireballing right-hander for the Texas Rangers, leading the major leagues in strikeouts and limiting the opposition to a cumulative batting average of just 187.
People, they talk about me as doing the things that I do. I really don't consider myself in the same class with Nolan, because here, this guy is, he's in his 40s. Sorry, Nolan, but and he is out pitching better than anyone in baseball.
In a major league career that has spanned 4 teams and 4 decades, Nolan Ryan has been nothing less than spectacular. He's posted 5 no-hitters and over 5,000 strikeouts.
I could not project a Nolan Ryan. A scout doesn't get this good. He says to protect himself, says he has a chance to play in the major leagues. Well, Nolan Ryan knocked the door down, and he went clear through the building and kicked the back door in. He's done it all. There's no chance that in my time there'll ever be another Nolan Ryan. And there may not be one ever.
Nolan Ryan's fastball has made him a household name, a magazine cover boy, the toast of both coasts. But away from the baseball diamond and the glare of the media spotlight, the man who makes his living in the fast lane prefers a life that's a little slower.
Now this is the Little League field that I played Little League baseball on, and then my two sons have played on.
He still lives in his hometown of Alvin, Texas, a quiet rural community which sits 30 miles south of Houston toward the Texas Gulf Coast. He's still married to his high school sweetheart. She was the tennis champ and beauty queen. He was the sports star and most handsome.
We had our first date when I was 13 and he was 15. And then we dated through high school. And then Nolan went into minor league baseball. And after I graduated from high school, we got married. That was in 1967.
The Ryans, together with their 3 children, Reed, Reese, and Wendy, live in a ranch-style house on the outskirts of town. The family schedule revolves around sports, the games the children play, while a proud mom and pop look on from the bleachers. Nolan's other love is ranching. He operates a cattle breeding program that will serve as a second career for him when he finally turns off the heat and gets out of baseball.
We run about 1,000 head of breeding age cattle, and we're in a cow-calf operation, have a cow-calf operation, and we have 3 ranches located in South Texas, and from the coast as far west as the Cotulla area down in LaSalle County. So we're spread out, and it's something I've always enjoyed. And I didn't grow up on a ranch. I grew up in town, but it's something I always was attracted to, and I have been in it since 1972.
Like most Texas youngsters, Nolan Ryan grew up playing football, but his gridiron career would prove short-lived.
You may recall a young man named Norman Bulash, who played for Miami Dolphins, and Norman played the same year as Nolan did over at Lamarck, and he ended Nolan's career. Nolan was playing defensive halfback for us, and Norman Bulash ran over him in a game and hurt him, and I don't think Nolan put on another suit after that.
Once I realized that I didn't have any future in football, and my goal really was to go to college on a basketball scholarship, and that was my first love, was basketball, and so that's what I really worked towards. And I probably could have played college basketball, but my baseball ability overshadowed my basketball ability.
Basketball's loss was baseball's gain. Nolan was a tall, skinny right-hander who lacked polish and finesse. But even though he weighed just 150 pounds, he had a blistering fastball. But
he threw so hard that I didn't have anyone who could catch him. I had to spend my summers working on catchers for the following year. That's not an exaggeration. That's the real truth.
My attitude about pitching in amateur baseball was that that's the only way I knew how to pitch, was just throw as hard as I could for as long as I could, and it was very effective. We did all-night games. There were bad lights, and I was quite wild. And the kids were more concerned about getting hurt than they were about getting base hits.
Nolan's incredible arm caught the sharp eye of New York Mets scout Red Murph.
Nolan came in and warmed up, and the first few pitches, it was almost unbelievable. He was throwing the ball 95 to 100 miles an hour, and I could tell he was a youngster. And he did convince me that day that he had the best arm that I'd ever seen in my life.
In 1965, based on Red Murph's recommendation, the Mets drafted Ryan in the 8th round. He was the 295th player taken. He signed for a bonus package of around $20,000 and was shipped off to the minors, where he wasted no time in showing his magical right arm. At Marion, Virginia, in the Appalachian League, he fanned 115 batters in just 78 innings. At Greenville in the Carolina League, he whiffed 272. At Williamsport in AA ball, he struck out 21 batters in one game. The minor league hitters were simply overmatched, and the legend was beginning to grow. When he got to the majors, Nolan was more a thrower than a pitcher. He was a diamond in the rough, but on occasion, oh, how that diamond could shine.
It was not unusual for Nolan to throw a curveball that almost would bounce on the grass, or to throw the next curveball over the top of me. And yet here was a guy who would be wild up and in, or be wild low and away, and all of a sudden the next pitch thrown in the corner, on the black of the plate as we refer to it. And I mean, you had no contest. There was no contest at that point.
You know, we had a great group of young pitchers early with the New York Mets. It was Gary Gentry, of course, Nolan, Jerry Koosman, myself, a lot of guys that could throw hard. But I think all of us recognize that Nolan probably had the most physical ability to throw the ball. I mean, it was really a very fine line with all of us. Koosman threw extremely hard. And when I was young, I was able to throw the ball fairly hard. But I think more than anybody else, we all felt that Nolan was the guy that could throw it the hardest.
Ryan's finest hour with the Mets came in the third game of the '69 World Series against Baltimore. In Game 3, the Mets took a 4-0 lead into the seventh. But starter Gary Gentry faltered, loading the bases with 2 outs. Manager Gil Hodges then summoned Ryan from the bullpen.
Now all of a sudden here we're in the third game of a World Series. It's even at 1-1. And, you know, here comes Nolan Ryan out of the bullpen, and people are going, oh my goodness, you know, has Gil gone completely off his rocker? And all Nolan did was just completely shut him down.
Ryan earned a save and a game ball, but it didn't come easy. Tommy Agee's sensational catch stopped the Orioles in the seventh. And in the ninth, Ryan loaded the bases before fanning Paul Blair to end the game.
He got Paul Blair with 2 strikes and threw a curveball at Paul Blair. And Paul Blair's knees buckled. I mean, he just knew this was a fastball that was going to fix him and kill him. And his knees just buckled, and the ball broke across the middle of the plate, and it was all over.
Ryan would enjoy other moments of brilliance as a Met, but on a staff dominated by Seaver and Koosman, he couldn't get the innings he needed to develop. In 1972, along with outfielder Lee Stanton and catcher Francisco Estrada and pitcher Don Rose, he was traded to the California Angels for shortstop Jim Fregosi. Manager Del Rice gave Nolan the ball every 4th day and stuck with him. The steady work plus help with mechanics from pitching coach Tom Morgan resulted in a breakthrough season. Against the Red Sox, he struck out 8 consecutive batters. He won 19 games, tossed 9 shutouts, and led the American League in strikeouts with 329. His ERA was a glittering .228. Most impressive of all was the number he did on opposing hitters, holding them to a batting average of just .171. Ryan had arrived as one of the dominant pitchers in the game, and 1973 was to be his banner year. On May 15th at Kansas City, Ryan pitched his first Major League no-hitter, blanking the Royals 3-0. As always, he piled on the K's, and the Angels gave him all the defense he needed. Center fielder Bobby Valentine made a nice running grab. Shortstop Rudy Mioli's over-the-shoulder catch was the only close call. To prove that effort was no fluke, Ryan came back on July 15th and no-hit the Detroit Tigers 6-0. On this day, Ryan was truly awesome. His first pitch was a sharp breaking curveball that hit umpire Ron Luciano in the shin. When Nolan has this kind of stuff, the batters are simply overmatched. He struck him out looking. He struck him out swinging. He fanned him with a heat. He got him with a curve. It was no contest as Nolan Ryan rang up 17 strikeouts.
He was so overpowering that day, and it was the last man to come to the plate that always sticks out in my mind, and that was the late Norm Cash. Somewhere he went back into underneath the stands or somewhere at Tiger Stadium and came to the plate with a piano leg. And that was it. Instead of a bat, he had a piano leg. And I mean, that's how much in command and how much of a joke that the Tigers were making of it. They said, this guy is just, yeah, I mean, he's unhittable.
Umpire Luciano made Cash use a real bat, but piano leg, table leg, or Louisville slugger, it made no difference as Cash went down to end the game.
Also a record time strikeout performance. Here it comes. He pops it up. A tough play. No hitting for Nolan Ryan.
Of all the no-hitters, I think that one by far was the most dominating. I had probably the best curveball and command of my fastball in that game, more so than, say, any of the others.
As the year progressed, Nolan piled on the wins and piled on the strikeouts, and some important records were within reach.
I think that my principal goal is to win 20 games, but if I can win 20 games and also set a new strikeout record, I'm definitely going to try.
Rube Waddell's American League mark of 349 Ks fell against Texas, and catcher Jeff Torborg's glove was lost in Boston.
We were in Boston, and it was very close to the end of the season, and Nolan was pitching, and there was a runner at third base, and all of a sudden he fires a high fastball just up around my shoulder height. I felt it hit the glove, and I hear the crowd roar, and the runner starts at the plate, and I look in my glove. He had thrown it right through the webbing. It broke right through and hit the backstop on a fly. My concern at that point was not that the runner had scored, but what had happened if it were right in front of me, you know? I'd be speaking through my chest.
In September, Nolan beat Minnesota for his 20th win. But going into his final start, once again facing the Twins, he was 15 strikeouts shy of Sandy Koufax's Major League season record of 382 Ks. In the beginning, it didn't look like Ryan would make it past the first inning as the Twins got to him for 3 quick runs. But Nolan steadied, and his awesome competitive fire began to burn. The 11th inning would be it. With 2 outs and Rich Reese at the plate, Nolan summoned all his strength. Fastball swung on and missed, strike 3. The record was Ryan. A spectacular accomplishment made all the more remarkable when you stop and consider 1973 was the first year of the designated hitter.
When you talk about a guy that has set the all-time season record for strikeouts, just the physical ability and the physical stamina that he showed in the season that he struck out 383 men is really incredible.
Ryan finished the year at 21-16, and in a remarkable display of power and consistency, he struck out 10 or more in a game, a record 23 times. Was Nolan the fastest gun in baseball? Well, in 1974, scientists from Rockwell International decided to find out. At the time, it was generally accepted that Bob Feller held a speed record with a clocking of 98.6 miles per hour done by the U.S. Army. So breaking the record would be a tall order indeed. To clock Ryan's pitches, the Rockwell technicians set up a battery of sophisticated measuring equipment. Once again, Nolan came through in the clutch. In the 9th inning on a 3-2 fastball to B.B. Richard, he was clocked at 100.9 miles per hour. The fastest pitch ever thrown. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records. You can look it up. On September 28, 1974, Nolan joined the short list of pitchers with 3 career no-hitters as he shut out the Twins. Playing for a last-place team, he wound up the year with 22 wins. And get this, 3 times he struck out 19 in a game, finishing the year with 367 Ks. On June 1st, 1975 at Anaheim, Ryan no-hit Baltimore to join Sandy Koufax as the only 2 pitchers with 4 no-hitters. The legend continued to grow.
I was riding to the bus in one of my first years in the major leagues, and Oscar Gamble was with us with the Cleveland Indians. We were riding in the bus, and the marquee outside of Anaheim Stadium said, pitching today for the Angels, Nolan Ryan. And Oscar saw the sign along with everybody on the bench, and he said, uh-oh, good day today is 0 for 4 and don't get hit in the head. And, you know, that was kind of the sentiment, just take your 0 for and get out of there.
Pitchers with this kind of stuff, you know, can do most anything they want to do, you know. If he got great stuff, you know, he's going to go out there and beat your ball game 1-0. He's going to go out there and probably pitch a no-hitter.
After 8 record-setting seasons with the Angels, Nolan Ryan returned to the National League in 1980. He signed a free agent contract with the Houston Astros, and in the process became baseball's first $1 million man. Nolan Ryan had come home.
To be able to live at home year-round, I felt like for my family's sake that it was probably for the best interest of them.
A year later, as the Astros battled the Los Angeles Dodgers for the Western Division title, baseball's top gun notched another record in his belt. On September 26th in the Dome with a national television audience hanging on every pitch, Ryan pitched his record 5th no-hitter, shutting out the Dodgers 5-0.
The stage was set for him with a Saturday afternoon game late in the season against the Dodgers, the team we were contending for in the West for the 1981 split season, strike-shortened season title. And NBC was covering the game, and he just took over.
In the 7th inning, Dodgers catcher Mike Scioscia sent a ball deep to the right center field alley. But Astros outfielder Terry Poole made a fine running catch. Otherwise, Ryan dominated. In the 9th inning, with a crowd roaring on every pitch, he fanned Reggie Smith. Then he got Ken Landreau to ground out. The final batter was the dangerous Dusty Baker. The count was 2-2. Ryan tossed Baker a curveball, and Baker shot a grounder to third.
I hadn't had a ground ball yet, and I'm thinking, man, I better not boot this thing if it comes to me. And Dusty Baker was hitting, and sure enough, here comes a ground ball to me, and I treated it like a hot potato. I got rid of it as quickly as I could. I didn't want to hold on to it too long.
It was the first opportunity that my mother got the chance to see one of the no-hitters as she was in the stands that day, and so there were some special things about it that didn't happen in the other ones.
Baseball's records are, of course, made to be broken, but Ryan's 5th no-hitter is yet another of his feats that is unlikely to be challenged in the foreseeable future.
It's a standard that, to me, will never be eclipsed. And it's very difficult to use that kind of a word in sports when you say never, but I don't think anyone will ever score 100 points in basketball. I don't think anyone will ever have a 56-game hitting streak, and I don't think anybody will ever have 5 no-hitters. Someone may have 6, but he's in Texas now.
Ryan won his 200th game on July 22nd, 1982, and now looming on the horizon was another of baseball's most famous standards, Walter Johnson's Major League career record, 3,508 strikeouts. The Ryan Express was chasing the big train, and it would be like a bullet train racing a steam locomotive. No contest. On April 17, 1983, Andre Dawson of the Montreal Expos became victim 3,500. 10 days later at Montreal's Olympic Stadium, Ryan would get the record. In the 8th inning, he struck out Tim Blackwell to tie Johnson. The next batter was pinch hitter Brad Mills. Strike 1. Strike 2. Ball 1. A backdoor curveball, strike 3.
I got a lot of personal satisfaction out of that because when I broke into baseball, that was one of the records they thought would never fall, as they thought Babe Ruth would.
For Ryan, the record signified both durability and command of his pitches. He could still bring the heat, but he was much more than a one-trick pony.
A lot of people talk about Nolan Ryan being able to throw hard. What they forget about is the fact that he had one of the most vicious curveballs ever shown in the game of baseball. So could you imagine hitting off a guy who could throw the ball as hard as he does and then have to worry about him having an outstanding curveball to go along with it?
Ryan continued to write his name in the strikeout ledger, posting his 4,000th K in July of 1985.
That was against the Mets here in the Dome, and it was against Danny Heap. And I think the ironic part of that was I was out doing my running prior to warming up in the game that night, and Danny was in the lineup, and he was out doing his sprints and getting loose, and he came by me and says, "You're not getting me tonight for 4,000. And lo and behold, who comes to the plate was Danny, and then he chased the curveball down for strike 3. And I think I got more satisfaction out of that than I did the Johnson record, because then when I broke Johnson's record, 4,000 was the furthest thing in my mind, and I really didn't think that. Well, I just didn't anticipate playing long enough to do that.
And as if things weren't tough enough for National League hitters, Ryan perfected a changeup to go with his fastball and curve.
And his changeup is like it's like an 87-mile-an-hour screwball. He threw a pitch one time. The hitter was Jason Thompson, Pittsburgh. 3-2. He threw him about 5 or 6 straight fastballs, all in the upper 90s. Then he threw him a changeup on 3-2. Thompson was so far out in front of the pitch that he threw his bat, and it landed out in the Pirates' dugout. And after the game, I asked the guy with the radar gun how fast the pitch was, and he said it was 87 miles an hour. Well, can you imagine? Most guys don't throw their fastball that fast.
On the mound, Ryan was a study in concentration, a stoic, fierce competitor. But occasionally, he'd show a lighter side. Astros battery mate Alan Ashby remembers Ryan's impromptu imitation of Cincinnati's pitcher Brad Leslie. a man known as the Animal.
And he would, every time he'd strike somebody out, he'd go out there and just yell after the strikeout. And Nolan had watched about enough of it, and he decided he was going to do it. And the last person on earth you would ever expect to do that was Nolan Ryan. And he went and struck somebody out and just came off the mound and yelled. And both teams, both benches, totally fell out laughing. And it's the sort of thing that if anybody else had done, I think the other team would have taken offense to. But they fell out laughing and applauded him, and the game went on.
Those who know Nolan well all speak of his sense of humor, but this is a man who would rather entertain the fans with his pitching than with jokes. During Ryan's days with the Astros, everyone knew he could pitch, but he wasn't much of a hitter. In fact, he once went 42 trips without a hit, but he did hit a couple of home runs. You could look it up. As the 80s drew to a close, Ryan neared the allegedly untouchable total of 5,000 strikeouts. Most people, Ryan included, probably thought that historical moment would occur in an Astros uniform, but they were wrong. At age 42, starting his 23rd season in the majors, Nolan Ryan found himself headed back to the American League with a new address, Arlington Stadium, home of the Texas Rangers. Unable to reach a new agreement with the Astros, Ryan became a free agent after the '88 season and signed with Texas.
I'm excited about the Rangers. It gives me an opportunity to stay in Texas, play with a ball club that is going to be very competitive, and have my family in a situation that I think is the most workable situation for us.
And with Nolan Ryan leading the way, the Rangers got out of the gate quickly, playing aggressive, exciting baseball. The heat was on.
The heat is on the street, inside your head, on every beat, and the beats alive, deep inside, the pressure's high, just to stay alive, 'cause the heat is on.
When he's on, Ryan is almost unhittable. He throws a rising fastball that seems to hop over hitters' bats. His curveball seems to fall off the end of a table. Is it real or is it illusion? How does Ryan make major league hitters look so bad? Well, elementary, my dear Watson, it's scientific. Robert Adair, the Sterling professor of physics at Yale, explains.
It's like many things. Anytime you try to explain something complicated simply, you always lie a little. But here is a way of thinking about it. As the ball goes through the air, the force, resistive force on the ball increases as the velocity increases, indeed about as a square. So as the ball goes twice as fast, the resistive force is 4 times as large, approximately. Now let's say the ball is spinning, and we'll have a Mr. Nolan Ryan fastball. So the ball is spinning as it goes towards you like this. You can see as it goes through the air, the bottom of the ball is going faster through the air than the top. So the forces on the bottom of the ball are larger than the forces on the top of the ball, ergo the ball is pushed upwards by those forces. Let us say that you're all set for the regular, very fast, 90-mile-an-hour fastball of the ordinary pitcher. Now, Mr. Ryan's ball comes at the trajectory, starts out just the direction you're used to from this 90-mile-an-hour fastball. When the ball's half-foot from the halfway to the plate, Mr. Ryan's fastball will be about 1.25 inches higher. Well, that's not very much. When it's 15 feet from the plate, it'll be about 2 inches higher. By the time it crosses the plate, it'll be 4 inches higher and goes hop right over your bat. So his fastball rises in comparison with the trajectory of an ordinary fastball. The Nolan Ryan curveball is much more of a drop than a sideways, and tactically, that's what major league pitchers want to throw, the ball so that it drops. And they will have maybe 1,400, maybe even a little more, revolutions per minute in just the opposite direction. So instead of curving 5 inches up, it will curve even more downwards. It'll curve more downwards because it'll be going slower. And the batter who's waiting for the Nolan Ryan fastball, and then that curve comes up, he's got big troubles.
Professor Adair knows physics, but Nolan knows pitching.
I grip all my pitches differently. A lot of people try to grip their pitches the same so they can take the sign with the ball behind their back and not have to worry about hiding it. I throw my fastball. I'm different from a lot of people is that I don't have real long fingers, and I throw the ball back in my hand. There's not a lot of gap there. I don't get it out on my fingertips like that. So I throw it like that, and I throw my fastball with all 4 seams. So when the ball comes off like that, it has a good tight rotation, and you want the ball to appear that it has a ride to it, or as you hear people say, a rising fastball. What it is, it just doesn't drop as fast as other ones. And so that's basically how I throw my fastball. Sometimes if I want to try to run it in on a hitter, I'll throw it with a 2-seam fastball. And because of the way it comes out, you'll get more movement on the ball, either in or in on a right-hander or away from a left-hander. Now, I don't throw a slider, but I throw a curveball, and I choke it a lot like that in my hand. And this finger here just lays on the ball. There's no pressure on it. Your pressure points are on this finger here and on your thumb. And the only difference in a fastball release and a breaking ball release is your wrist position. People think you twist your wrist and snap the ball, but you don't. On a fastball, the ball comes through like this. On a curveball, the only difference is you turn your wrist. And it comes out on a curveball, it comes out like this. Where on a fastball, it comes out with your hand behind it like this. So it's just your wrist position, curveball, to a fastball. Now my changeup, I learned to grip on it. I always had a problem with my changeup throwing it too hard and being inconsistent. Changeup needs to be 10 to 15 miles an hour slower than the velocity on your fastball. Really, it needs to be 15 and below, but if you throw it down at 10 miles an hour, it's very effective. So I use it as a rule of thumb. It has to be below 10 miles an hour, and it has to be down by the knees. And I throw mine what they call circle change, and I hold it like that, where this finger isn't even on the ball, and I hold it tight. And the ball comes out of my hand. You throw it with your position the same, your wrist position as a fastball. And when it comes out, it comes off like this. And my middle finger here is the last release point on the ball. Well, I put it on this seam to try to get it to come out that way. So what it has is this type of rotation, and what it'll do is it'll also sink and act kind of like a screwball to a left-hander. And it's been a very effective pitch for me, and it's gotten better and better.
Now, fortunately, most of us will never have to face a Nolan Ryan fastball or try to get a bat on one of his wicked curves. But we thought you might want to actually feel the heat. So we rigged up a special Ryan cam to let you experience the sensation. What do you think? Those major league hitters earn their money when they bat against Nolan. Talking about Nolan Ryan's pitches is easy. As American League hitters discovered, the hard part is hitting them. Nolan fan Bo Jackson 6 straight times before Bo finally connected and sent a Ryan fastball flying back to the center field bleachers. On June 14th, facing California for the first time, Ryan became the 6th Major League pitcher in history to beat all 26 Major League teams. In his next appearance, the '89 All-Star Game, Ryan got another win. He pitched 2 scoreless innings, struck out 3, and became the oldest winning pitcher in All-Star Game history. On August 10th, facing Detroit at Arlington Stadium, Ryan again flirted with his 6th no-hitter. This time, Dave Bergman played the spoiler's role in the 9th inning. But Nolan Ryan's near no-hitters, exciting in their own right, seem secondary to the main storyline for 1989, strikeouts. By mid-August, Ryan was rapidly closing in on 5,000 career Ks. Research books flew open. Statisticians and sabermetricians took to the microfilm and the microfiche. Baseball folks put the pencil to every strikeout Nolan Ryan had ever recorded. What did they find? Alphabetically, Ryan had whiffed players from A, Hank Aaron, to Z, Paul Zuvella. He had struck out 19 Hall of Famers and 44 league MVPs. The father and son tandems Ryan had faced and fanned included the Alomars, Sandy and Roberto, the Bonds, Bobby and Barry, the Franconas, Tito and Terry, the Griffeys, Ken and Ken Jr., the Schofields, Dick and Dick Jr., and the Wills, Maury and Bump. Ryan's strikeouts included a Porter, a Cooper, a Baker, a Miller, and a Doc. He set down a bird, a bass, a boa, a deer, a moose, and a penguin. His victims included Law and Orta. He fanned a king, a duke, an earl, and a count. Ryan got the best of 1 blue, 3 greens, and 4 whites. He left everyone seeing red. And finally, research showed the answer to the trivia question, who was Nolan Ryan's first strikeout victim? September 11th, 1966, Atlanta Braves pitcher Pat Jarvis. Ryan's date with destiny came down to August 22nd, 1989 at Arlington Stadium against the Oakland A's. The Dallas-Fort Worth area hummed with excitement. Baseball Commissioner A. Bartlett Giamatti flew in for the historic occasion and watched the game with Rangers managing general partner George W. Bush. The eyes of the baseball world were on Texas.
I think I probably felt more anxiety going into that game than probably any other game that I can really recall, because everybody came there, the build-up, the fact the stadium was sold out, and I knew a lot of people had come a long ways to see that event, and I needed 6 strikeouts, and the last thing I wanted to do was have a disappointing performance and not accomplish that. And not that I was anticipating that, but I think looking at things realistically, that I'd have been devastated if I hadn't accomplished it that night.
Needing 6 strikeouts to reach 5,000, Ryan swiftly went to work. In the first inning, he K'd Jose Canseco with a curve. In the second inning, he buzzed a 95-mile-per-hour fastball past Dave Henderson and got Tony Phillips to chase an 0-2 curve. In the third inning, Ricky Henderson swung through a 93-mile-an-hour fastball. Then on a 1-2 count to Ron Hasse, Ryan smoked a 96-mile-per-hour heater. All Hasse could do was watch. Hasse had been number 4,999. The only question remaining was which of his teammates would be next. Leading off the fifth for Oakland was Ricky Henderson, a perennial all-star, one of the most exciting, explosive players in the game. Ryan started him off with 95-mile-an-hour smoke, outside corner at the knees, strike one. Then came a 94-mile-an-hour fastball on the outer half, strike two. For a franchise that had moved to Texas nearly 2 decades earlier and in the interim had little to brag about, the moment had come. Ryan, going for the jugular, fired a belt-high fastball on the outer edge. He missed 1-2. Then he snapped off a curve that sailed just wide, 2-2. As light flashes showered the Texas sky, Henderson fouled the next pitch, a fastball back. Then he laid off a Ryan curveball that didn't bite, and it came in a bit tight, a full count. Reaching back a bit extra, Ryan came in with his money pitch, the big heat.
Full count in a row for Ryan. Here's the payoff pitch. He struck him out swinging. Strikeout number 5,000 is history for Nolan Ryan.
It came down with Ricky being the quality hitter that he is, that I had to make the pitch I wanted, and it was a fastball low and away, and from a pitcher standpoint, it was a perfect pitch.
And how did the fastest fastball pitcher of all time react? In true Ryan fashion, he simply doffed his cap. He accepted congratulations from his catcher and his infielders, but his actions made it clear he wanted to play ball. There was still a game to be won, though in fact Texas lost that night 2-0. But the final score wasn't the important number of the evening. 5,000 was.
It's a record that hopefully will be broken in baseball, but it's hard to imagine somebody doing it. And what a thrill. I was a 6-year-old kid at the same time I was a 43-year-old owner of the Rangers.
Ryan's last appearance came on September 30th at the Big A in Anaheim. He got a 3-hit shutout, 57th of his career, and his 16th win of the season, his most since 1982. And he got 300 strikeouts, bringing up Dick Schofield for the big one. The season ended on a high note, with a promise of even more memorable moments ahead in the 1990s. How then do you measure a Nolan Ryan? Unquestionably, the Ryan Express is bound for the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. He's got the arm, he's got the numbers, he's got the respect.
Every time I stepped in the batter's box against Nolan Ryan, I always felt it was power against power, and appreciated and relished the privilege of facing a guy who I knew threw harder than anyone that ever breathed.
He has taken a God-given talent and through hard work harnessed it and developed its full potential.
Well, ability-wise, Nolan's as good a pitcher as ever put on a uniform. He not only throws his fastball faster than, his curveball breaks better than, and now he has a changeup that is the envy of all of baseball.
He is a man true to his roots, a country boy who loves the land, cherishes his small town values, and gives back to his community.
Nolan Ryan is a Texas hero. He is a guy who embodies all of what Texans believe in, which is hard work and family and faith.
He is a family man, a devoted husband and father, a man of integrity.
Talk about straight arrows. Nolan Ryan is the straight arrow of our time.
One day, Nolan will walk off the mound for the final time, and he will be missed. For Nolan Ryan is one of a kind.